Thank you very much, Mina. And I did say it in the holding area, so I will say it again. Yeah, I'm always, I would have to be careful saying anything before Minister Al-Faleh. He's the voice of wisdom and the statesman that has been an architect of the development agenda that we see in the region today. It's an honor to be with you, sir, and with everybody else on this esteemed panel. When we talk about growth, if you allow me, Mina, I'll just zoom out for a second and look at overall GCC regional growth and the macro trends in it. Today, it's a 2.3 trillion GDP per annum economic unit. It is moving towards being a $3 trillion per annum GDP economic zone by 2030. And moving towards being a $6 trillion per annum economic zone by 2050. That's the macro trend at conservative numbers. We can look at where global growth will be over the next couple of years, but let's zoom out and look at the long term and look at where that development agenda is. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is 50% of that GDP and a big driver of that growth. And that growth across the region is being driven by sound policy, by excellent execution, and by making sure that we are simplifying doing business and having a very rapid decision-making process. And we're seeing the results in that growth. And when we look at the Kingdom of Bahrain, what we have put in place coming out of COVID in October 2021, we announced the Kingdom's economic recovery plan, and it very clearly outlined what we are aiming to achieve. There are 6 sectors that we are focused on, and those 6 sectors are banking, telecoms and digital services, manufacturing, logistics, oil and gas, and tourism. And we're putting everything into those sectors. Today in Bahrain's GDP, 83% of GDP is non-oil, and the largest sector in the economy is banking and finance. So we are rapidly making diversification efforts. And what we have found is that whenever you simplify procedures, whenever you go in and get government out of the way and allow the private sector to move at the pace they want to move and give them the enablers that they need, which is mainly a very good jurisdiction in terms of dealing with disputes and high quality infrastructure, things thrive. And that's what we aim to do in Bahrain, to continue along this path of growth and ensure that we are a good, solid service center for the wider economic growth in the region that we see led by the larger economies, mainly of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates.
Can I pick up on that, Sheikh Salman, if you allow me? Often when we look at the Gulf, these priorities are similar between different countries. And outsiders will often say they're competing for a very similar pot or competing for similar trends. How do you respond to that?
The pie is growing so quickly that you can't be competing. What we're doing is, the pie currently is growing so fast that competition is not even on the table. Everybody's trying to grow their service sectors, grow their participation, grow their GDP, and there's a lot of synergistic benefits. Tourism is a great example. When we look at the targets that are being set for tourism across the region, and then we look at the efforts that are being made for joint marketing, for joint packages, for joint holidays, it is a great result, not only just for the GCC, but also for economies around the GCC that participate in that growth. Because then you're talking about even tapping into larger population markets like Southeast Asia, like North Africa, and how they can also drive and benefit from that flow of people. And be positive participants in that. So bottom line is the pie is growing so fast that at this stage we need more and more partners joining on that journey, if I may. Thank you for that question, and that's a challenge globally. And we are very lucky to be in a region where we have a growing population and we have a young population, and have been able to provide them in the GCC with a high level of education and, more recently, a high level of digitization. And therefore, the first problem that you have in any country is if the population is declining. Then you have nothing to work with. Then the next issue you have is you have areas of the world where you have rising populations and young populations, but there's not enough education infrastructure to bring them in to be economically additive, and so they end up being a burden on the state. The sweet spot that we're seeing in the GCC is that we have young populations, we have a high growth rate, and there is a very high quality education system that's able to transform them to being economically additive. And today, I'll give the example of the Kingdom of Bahrain. One of the main attractions when companies are coming and looking at FDI is they say, oh, we have the ability to hire Bahrainis. And we have the ability to also have an open market where we're able to bring in labor. And so that combination of the fact that one of the attractions is the labor force. The challenge is to ensure that you have skills sustainability. And today, for example, with AI coming in, that you embrace the technology and make it a center where people work with it and become experts in it, or you very quickly get left behind. And that's one of the challenges that we need to ensure skills sustainability is there across the board.
And just to add to, obviously, the geopolitics of the region gets us a little nervous.
Geopolitics aside, I'm not going to make any geopolitical comments. I'll keep that aside. AI and the adoption of AI and how it will, it's transformative, and the way it manifests itself in different industries will be the biggest transformation since the Industrial Revolution. So that's what we're watching.